My name is Dr. Angela Ramsey. Let me say that again. My name is Dr. Angela Ramsey, and I am the president of the Farkinson Institute of Public Affairs. I welcome and greet Mrs. Garrick Lloyd on behalf of the patrons, Sir Kenneth Hall, our advisors, a long list of them, and of course, on behalf of the entire board of directors. FIPA was established in 1917. So we call the Farquharson Institute of Public Affairs. That's a big mouthful. We call it FIPA. And of course, we have gone through numerous administrations based on the fact that this was established over a century ago. We are now with the brand new FIPA, and we're very excited about that. We have 5 centers. The Mental Health Center is headed by Mrs. Garrick Lloyd. We also have the Family Center, the Trade Center, and the Leadership Center, in addition to the Idea Lab. So that I do invite you to visit FIPA at www.fipaglobal.com. That is www.fipaglobal.com. So now let's get to the business at hand. I am really delighted to introduce Cheryl. I think that many of you know her by that name. I think that she is an extraordinary human being. I'm just going to briefly talk about her credentials, but I'd like to talk about her character more than her credentials. Her credentials are that she was a psychiatric nurse. She did a master's at the School of Nursing at Mona, and that she is currently pursuing a PhD at the University of Lancaster, in addition to a number of other credentials and qualifications, in addition to being the president of associations, quite a few, and these are notable associations as well. But let me get to Cheryl's character. When she was a psychiatric nurse, now I did not know her at that point, but what I do know is that this is the real, authentic, nitty-gritty work with working with mental illness. And of course, she will make the distinction between mental illness and mental health, but she has done the work. The master's that she did at UA is actually one of the most challenging master's degree in that entire university. The practicum, in addition to the theory, it is overwhelming. I don't know how anyone can do that, but she got through that brilliantly. She can't say it, so I will say it for her. Cheryl is actually a brilliant person, a brilliant student. She came first, she had a lot of distinctions. So that is who she is in terms of the mental agility, the depths of her intellect. But she's something else. Cheryl is very strong, genuinely strong, and she has a vocation for mental health. It's not just an interest. You know, sometimes when I meet people, I understand when they're interested in their profession. But this goes way beyond interest. It is a vocation. Cheryl wants Jamaica to be mentally healthy. So I am so proud to really have her as a presenter. As I said, she's the head of the Mental Health Center, this extraordinary lady. Cheryl?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramsey. Good evening, everybody. Dr. Ramsey has left me speechless for 2 seconds. I don't think people would recognize it, but I'm not a fan of the limelight per se, but I do know that I think Dr. Ramsey just said my vocation, it's my purpose and my passion. I have to share on mental health. So I want to say a very warm good evening to everybody who has joined. For anybody who is coming on, when they come on, tell them I said welcome. This is Mental Health Mondays for August, and I am very happy to join two of my roles, as you would have heard. Mental health speaker, professional, and advocate are things that are very deep within me, and I am a part of the Pakistan Institute of Public Affairs, as Dr. Ramsey just said, and I'm leading the Mental Health Center. So I'm happy to collaborate and combine today. For everyone who is joining me, the Mental Health Mondays initiative started in March of this year, I believe, as my 2025 way of sharing a little bit more. So every fourth Monday, we are on live and we discuss suggestions and or topics that come up. Now, we were having an interesting conversation about life transitions, starting with something simple like the fact that summer is going to be over and we're going to have to retransition into kids in school and us getting more busy and the traffic on the road, to things more serious that impact on us. And I usually also share 1 week in every month about mental health and a particular topic on my social media. And I wrote about transitions, life transitions, and change and mental health. So I said, let's talk about that because that covers a variety of topics. So this evening, that's what we're going to be discussing. And I know you're used to me probably saying some things. And everybody who has joined me before, thank you for coming back and staying with me. Please share some more because you're going to have to share with me at the beginning before I tell you anything this afternoon. And I want to be able to say to you that I value your input. And so we're going to have a little conversation right at the beginning before I tell you anything about the life transition. Is everybody seeing my screen?
Yes. Yes,
See
Sharon.
my screen, everybody?
Yes, Sharon.
Yes.
All right. So this evening, we're going to talk about navigating life transitions and how are we going to remain or become mentally healthy when we're going through change. Change is a must happen. Life is dynamic, and not every change is going to be something we embrace right away. In fact, although life is dynamic, I think a lot of us are not so happy about change. But I wanted to start this way. This is something that we all have heard and perhaps we've seen somewhere. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And even as we say this prayer, we have to accept that change is going to happen. So when we've done having our conversation this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about what life transitions are, what's the impact they could have on our mental health, and how are we going to go about navigating our mental health while all the change that's happening could happen or will happen. So let us talk for 2 seconds. I have a couple of scenarios. I will take 2 volunteers per scenario, and let me just tell you right now, I am a lecturer at this stage in my life, so I'm teaching nursing, and I tell my students, if I ask of you and you raise your hands, you volunteered. If nobody volunteers, I will pick on you and you've been voluntold. So it's very possible you could get voluntold. If you don't wish to open your microphone, you could perhaps just type it in the chat. But I want us to be engaged just for this section. So let's start with scenario 1. Major health challenges that can be a part of life transitions and are part of change. So the first scenario I'm giving you is a client who may be about 47 years old, started to have several signs and symptoms, went in, had all the tests done, and this person has been diagnosed with hypertension and diabetes. These are non-communicable diseases, we call them, but they are disorders that require a lifetime lifestyle change. So it may not be that hard for some persons, but for us to think about all the lifestyle changes we're going to have to make, including monitoring our health status, changing our eating habits, less salt, less sugar, different variety and variation, including some physical activity. The actual diagnosis is very stunning for a lot of persons, and it does take them a moment to navigate that change. So I need one person who's going to share with me what would they be able to tell somebody if they have this challenge about how they could manage the change, or if you've had this experience, what did you do to manage the change? And then the second one I'm going to share is perhaps looking at somebody who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness. So you got a suspicion, you've had all the tests done, and here it comes back that they're saying this is a cancer diagnosis. And then what do we do about managing that? It's just what you think, what you've heard, or maybe what you've experienced. So I'm going to open the microphone and or the chat, and I'll have asking two persons, share with me, what would you tell somebody about being able to manage any of these major health challenges? I'm looking, I don't see the chat yet. I haven't heard anybody. Need a second to think about it. Any kind of health challenges. We're asking somebody to share with us, how would they manage that? Or what would you tell somebody about managing that? I'm singing the Jeopardy song in my head. Should I pick on somebody?
Oh, hello.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Ramsey.
I think first I would listen to them very carefully to see what their concerns are. And then after that, I would address each concern in the best way I can, bearing in mind that I'm not an expert in some of those areas, so that it really would be listening. It would be also, as much as I can, pointing to persons, and I'm not sure when I would be doing this, who have overcome these particularly, these can be devastating, because the person really needs optimism at this time. Optimism balanced with realism. How does that sound? I know it's much more than that, but this is the way I would think first of all.
All right, so optimism with realism. Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. I'll take one more person. Anybody else? Quickly before I volunteer somebody. If you join me, I have to share, do you want to just type in the chat if you don't want to speak? But I'll take one more person before we move on to the next scenario. All right, everybody's being quiet. I'm gonna come back. All right, I see something in the chat. All right, so we have a share. All right, so we had somebody who was diagnosed and they said it was quite frightening and they had to learn how to change and what they needed to do. So it does take a minute to process. Thank you. All right, so scenario 2, dealing with loss. So I'll have one suggestion. We've noticed recently there has been a lot of natural disasters. Several people have lost their homes and all of their belongings, either from fires. I believe in maybe California, we were having a lot of people who lost their homes from fires. We have had several tsunamis and flooding, and people have pretty much lost everything that they owned due to this. So again, the question is, if you know someone who has lost everything, because right here in Jamaica it's happening, what is it that you would be able to say or share on dealing with loss? We're talking about, let's say, end of relationships, and I want to just stick up in here and say, end of relationships doesn't only have to be, for example, separation or divorce. Sometimes we have relationships with friends or with family that really are not great for us, and we have to make up our minds and recognize that we have to terminate these relationships, but it is a loss and it's not easy. So I take somebody else. Anybody wants to take these two and tell me, what would you suggest? Anything specific to help this person who has had to end a relationship or somebody who's lost their home? Again, we do the microphone or type in the chat. Thank you. We're very quiet. I need some people to talk to me, please. Should I pick Lillian, Nadine?
Good
Sorry, my
evening.
environment is a bit noisy.
All right, Nadine is going to talk. Go ahead, Nadine.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Miss. All
Hi.
right, so, I'm a shy one. However, I have no choice. All right, so for me, for the person who might be going through a change, for example, a relationship, um, because this just happened, let me speak about it. So there is a nurse who suddenly had to migrate. So she had to leave home, family, and everybody. And she went into panic mode and anxiety. So we had to be there for her. And of course, we had to further with all the positive um, talks. And it helped. Change is inevitable. As you said, life is dynamic. We're not static. And we are placed here to grow. And sometimes we get so complacent in relationship, not only intimate relationship, but friendships. And as life evolves, you realize that sometimes we do outgrow spaces, we do outgrow people. Not necessarily that we are going to leave these people forever, but sometimes life have to happen for us to go and become better so that we can come back and help even the very same people that we do not want to depart from. So a person who might be going through change as it relates to relationship, you would want to, as piggybacking on what Doc had said, I would want to find out where the person is at mentally, where their mind space. How do you take this change? Because if I have to find out where they're at so I can render the help that they so need. Some persons do accept change as it is. For me, I know it wouldn't be anything, but I want to know how this person perceive it so I could be better able to help them, right? I know being accustomed with somebody for quite some time or having a friendship for 10 years, 5 years is not easy for you to walk away from. But sometimes we have to let go of the old in order to welcome the new, as you said. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Nadine. So we're going to talk about all of that as we discuss change. Scenario 3, I put it as age-related changes, and age doesn't only mean if you're getting older, but the first one is retirement. There are many persons who they plan or it's unplanned because you know what, sometimes in your head, you're getting to retirement age, and the next thing you know is that you're there and you weren't necessarily ready. And then the second one I'm throwing out, so I'll take any comments on that, is accepting a different life path. Ever in your mind pictured what your life was going to look like and had a complete plan, and then you've had to come to the recognition that the plan you had is not going to work and you have to head in a different direction. So I'm throwing that out to anybody who wants to know. Tell me, what would you have to say if you've experienced retirement and how is that going and what have you done to manage it? Or if you at any point in time you've had to say, all right, I think this is not going to go where I think it should go. All right, so I'll take anybody else before I have to volunteer somebody again. And then we will get into, there's one more scenario before I start telling you the things that I think could help you this afternoon. Or anybody wants to take on anything else, because I don't think people realize sometimes how parents are perhaps affected when all their children have flown the nest and they were so happy to have you go and then it's very quiet in the house. So who wants to share with me for scenario 3? Any takers? We're very quiet. I think I just saw my darling Dr. Bo. Dr. Bo, did I just see you come in?
Yes, I'm present, Cheryl, but
Welcome.
that's all. I was here to listen.
I'm picking on you. So this is the scenario. What would you tell somebody who has had to step into the retirement life, whether planned or unplanned, and how they're going to manage it mentally? If you had to tell them two things, what would you say?
Well, I'm not sure I'm managing it mentally yet, but I can say that it's a beautiful change. It's it's like for me, this is for me. It's like I'm now me. I've gotten to a place where I do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And I like that. The only thing is, I think I'm doing too much. I look forward to the day when I can say, no, I'm not there yet. Because I think people know me and know what I'm good at and what excites me. And so they keep coming my way with it. And I've not really gotten to the stage where I can say, no, son, no more of this, no more. And but I sort of enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy these activities that I am called to. So that is good. And I think it's just different because it's not a get up every morning, run every morning, do. You're not on that kind of a wine press. I know it's a change of income. And so you're not able to, some of the things that I really wanted to do and planned to do and looked forward to doing, I've not been able to do yet. I realize I have to go wheel and come again. Yes, but there's still hope that I will be able to do some of these things on the bucket list. But I'm enjoying it, actually. I really am.
All right. Thank you. So it's a beautiful change, but you do need a plan. And it sounds like you found yourself to be one of the busy retired persons. So we have to manage that as well.
Yes.
So that ties into what you said last about the income, because we have another share in the chat that's saying the loss of income was very real and it can be very depressing when you're struggling financially. There was a need for counseling, but we're going to talk about that because sometimes people shy away from it. And then we had one more share that says they're not near retirement, but they've seen so many people who don't have a plan. And it really is such a struggle for them once they get to that retirement stage. And there are some people retire and then you know what, they die shortly after and there's not much that they got to do. So scenario 4 is the last one before I start sharing with you. Migration. We have a lot of migration, but many people only think of country to country. So now I'm going to ask anybody, 2 people again, if possible. Thank you for sharing before I have to volunteer you again. Many people have a shock when they migrate from rural to urban. You come into Kingston, it can be a little bit different, for argument's sake. Many students who struggle sometimes when they've had to move out of high school into a university life. When we do from country to country, because many persons find themselves migrating to another country and they're alone, and it's a serious challenge adjusting to the new change and culture. And for a lot of people, they migrate to different jobs. So even when you're excited, maybe initially, the fact that you're going to leave the comfortable that you were used to can still cause anxiety, even if you wanted to change your job. So I'll take 2 more persons before I start to share with you what I would like to tell you this evening. Thank you. What would you tell somebody for any of these and how they could manage that for their mental health sake? Because migration is a big change. All right, we're quiet again. Do I need to pick on somebody? Anybody? Thank you. I said maybe I should pick on Stacy and Tamika this time since nobody's talking to me. All right, I see something in the chat. Form a community. That is true, Nadine, but for a lot of people, once they have moved, they will maybe eventually, but for some people, we talk about persons who are introverts and extroverts. Some people, it takes them a little bit longer to even make one new person that they can relate to, and it takes them a minute to get the community started. But that could be a good option. And or find possible persons who you can relate to help you start that community. Could be an option. All right. One more person. Nobody has to talk to me?
Cheryl, can you hear me?
Yes,
Good
I can,
afternoon,
Sam. Go
folks.
right ahead
Yeah, I tried earlier, but something was wrong, I guess, with
with
my
your microphone. Well, we're hearing you loud and
yeah,
clear now.
cool. Yeah, man. Moving. I moved from Philadelphia after grad school to come to Jamaica. You know, but moving is generally hard, but I think for me, the excitement of coming to Jamaica and starting to work at UWI. As a Guyanese, I've always looked up and respected UWI. Kind of made the transition somewhat easier. My wife might have a different story, at least initially, because again, she was just following me and she had to take care of our youngest son and all of that. But what I would say to folks is that I think generally in life, but especially when it comes to making a move, especially country to country, it's just to manage your expectations. Talk to people. Before coming out here, I would have reached out to people and get some idea, especially when it comes to how much money do I need to survive in Jamaica, So I think just managing your expectations, and being flexible helps with that transition, So
Wonderful.
that's what I want to share when it comes
Thank
to
you so
moving. But I
much.
can tell you, moving, just one little example. I recall while in grad school, moving from was it the 12th floor? Yes. Moving from the 12th floor of a building to the 10th floor. Same building, just packing up stuff and just moving 2 floors down was a little stressful. So just moving in generally, just across the road, it takes some doing. All right.
Thank you, Sam. Very much true. To pack and unpack is a whole thing in itself. So thank you, Lillian. I saw in the chat. Sounds like you're saying something similar to Sam. So we manage your expectations, have a couple of things that surround you that make you feel better, manage to communicate and see if you are able to get someone to recognize and to support you in all that's happening. So I thank everybody who participated in our 4 scenarios. As you are recognizing, life transitions are many and varied, but they are going to happen. So life transitions are defined as those major things that involve significant changes. It impacts our personal routine. It causes us to have a shift in our identity. And change is the one constant aspect of life that affects every single one of us. It's always going to be happening. And so, however, what we really want is to recognize how do we respond to the change emotionally. For our mental health sake, we have to recognize that it can be positive or negative, and it can affect things such as our decision making, our overall sense of well-being. Even if it's something that we are looking forward to, it does give us that reason to pause. And so some of the common things that we can have responding to change emotionally includes a varied set of emotional responses. So we start off sometimes with the anxiety. It could be sadness. It can be the excitement and the thrill of where we're heading to. And sometimes it's the uncertainty because we're not sure what's going to happen. Now, emotional reactions are natural and normal. It's going to happen to all of us in response to any and all of the life things that are happening to us. However, what it is that we have to recognize them and then we have to process them because it's a part of how we're going to be able to adjust to our new circumstances. And we also have to recognize that while emotional responses are universal, the manner in which we respond is individual and it's based on what's happening to us in the moment and what the particular change may be. So some of the common things that can happen to us when we're having life transitions and changes is that it can increase our stress levels. It increases our anxiety. It can lead to depression because it can be about the uncertainty and the new demands. And even if it's something, as I said before, that we are looking forward to, the fact that we have to get it done and it's a change process, it does create new demands, and it can be that there is uncertainty. What's very crucial is for us to recognize what we're feeling. What we have to do is manage it, and we need some support because it's normal to go through all of those emotions. What I would like to say to us is don't sweep them under the carpet. Don't suppress them. We have to actually recognize. And so managing the change is a process. And if we rush, we may not manage it as well. If we ignore it or we sweep it under the carpet, we're not managing it well. And sometimes that just leads to us having more mental health challenges because we need to acknowledge what we're feeling. And then we need to figure out how best are we going to move on from that. Two main things that can happen when we're having change happening to us. The effect from the life transition is that it leads us to start to reflect. It leads us to start to retrospect. It leads us to look at where we were, where we are, and where we're going. It can impact on our self-concept and our identity. You know, who am I in this moment? And am I heading in the right direction? Am I too focused on what's behind me? And how do I move forward? And so as our identity continues to evolve while we are doing all this reflecting and retrospecting, knowing that change is happening, it leads us to say, all right, who am I becoming, and do I want to be this person? A part of what happens to us when we're experiencing life transitions and change is that we start to wonder if we're heading in the right direction, and we start to think, is this what I want? Is it something that's beneficial? Is it something that I did, especially depending on the change? Could I have done something different? And then you start to think to yourself, who will I be? And sometimes who we are becoming is better, but then to let go of the old can be a very hard challenge. So the two main things can be that we're looking at the retrospect and we're looking reflectively, and then our identities are evolving into becoming, and it can be very hard to see. So what are some of the things that may affect us in our transitioning? Or resilience. Resilience is what they call our bounce back ability. How quickly can I adjust or adapt? So I think Sam said it, and you're going to see it as we go along. Flexibility is an important skill in our mental health arsenal. We have to have that flexibility. So our resilience is about how we bounce back. Can we adapt to the change? Can we adapt our response to the change? Can we figure out the best way to get to where we need to get to and overcome the challenges that we're having? Sometimes it's just our mindset, because the challenges can seem insurmountable when we are focused maybe a little bit more on the negative. And then sometimes it's really the reality, and we really have to work hard on how we're going to adapt to overcoming. No Man is an Island is a favorite song of mine, and what it means is that we all need support. Family, friends, your community, or what I like to call that circle of support. It's very important to help us to ease into anything that's happening to us when we're transitioning. And I'm going to say it here again, as I usually do. If we have persons in our circle and what we're feeling is more stress and more a matter of wanting to avoid them, that's not a circle of support. The support circle is really supposed to help you to manage and navigate and adjust in a positive way. Previous experiences can impact on our adjustment to transitioning. Sometimes the experience was not great, and it really makes us more overwhelmed with how we're going to move forward, because you start to think, you know, that didn't go so well. But then in the converse, we sometimes like to focus on the negative as opposed to the positive. I'm sure we've overcome several things in a positive manner, and it really does help if we're able to look back at those as steps to take us into moving on to the new transition and managing it well. Sometimes we don't have any kind of experience, but past experiences sometimes from others, because it doesn't always have to be our experience. And then the nature of the change can impact on our transition, because sometimes what the actual change is, how it's impacting us, and what we need to do can make it something that's more difficult, or actually there may be things in it that will help us to adjust in a way better manner. So what are the things that we need to do? They may not be as hard as we think. And I'm going to say again that nothing is a one size fits all. What works for one person may not work for somebody else. And sometimes even the same strategy or mechanism, you may have to navigate that and tweak it a little bit for you. And if it was working, you may have to tweak it some more to get it to continue working. So one of the most important things is for us to understand what is it that could work for me in navigating this life transition and this change. And I think I'd agree, I think with Dr. Ramsey when she said looking at realism and positivism, because you want to see and experience maybe from persons who've been here and or use your past experiences. So resilience and adaptability, I did say we were going to come back to that. We need to be able to work on how we move on from any challenge or life transition. We have to be flexible. When we are rigid in our thinking or in our ways, usually if persons are honest, they can say it creates so much more of a challenge to be able to transition when we're having those changes in our lives. And both resilience and adaptability are essential for mental health, not just when we're having change or transitions, but for every day. Because usually when I'm sharing, I say to persons, mental health has to do with us and our well-being, our thoughts, our feelings, and how we manage that every single day. And that's what I'm usually sharing about, as opposed to looking at mental illnesses or disorders. So we need resilience and we need adaptability to make sure we are taking care of our mental health every single day. Mental health is not a destination, it's a journey. So we need some healthy coping mechanisms. We have several coping mechanisms, and what is it that will work for us? So I usually like to say to persons, if you're approaching a challenge, a transition, or a problem, what are the skills you will use to approach that? Sometimes it depends on our background. You know, if you're mathematically inclined, if I'm a chemistry person, if I'm a religious person or a spiritual person, we may look at it from that. But at the basics, I say, usually when we're trying to address something, we say, well, you come up with a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. And I usually say to persons, make a DEF plans as the backup. And if we get to F, we have all 26 letters of the alphabet. So what are the problem-solving skills we're going to use to address the challenge and the transition and how we can reduce our stress levels? So sometimes we have to literally make that list. What are the pros? What are the cons? What can I use? How will I be able to navigate this problem that I'm having? Stress management goes without saying. Every change we have, I think Sam said it about moving from the 12th floor to the 10th floor. Everything that we're going through is something that adds to our stress. And stress is also a normal life reaction to things that are happening to us. But how do we manage our stress? Are we able to identify our stressors? Are we able to recognize how we respond to those stressors? Are we able to put techniques in place that help us to relax and navigate the stressors? So can I change my response or my reaction? Can I move the stressor away from me? Can I move myself away from the stressor, or do I need to use some flexibility until I'm able to do one of those things to manage my mental health and well-being? So stress management is important. More than the stress that we're going to face is how do we manage our stress? So do we do relaxation techniques? Do we use music? Do we use reading? Do we use nature? What is it that helps us to breathe and think clearly about what do we do next about this challenge or this transition that's happening to us? Because you know what? The life transition or the change is going nowhere. It's changing. Maintaining routines is a great way as a coping mechanism, because sometimes when our transition or change is happening, we lose our structure, we lose our stability, and sometimes that makes it just really worse. So what are the things that you have control over? Am I able to still wake up every morning and have my devotion? If that's what I do, do I wake up every morning and exercise? Am I able to manage in the small space what time I'm able to maybe leave work and get home? The small things that are consistent, that give me that stability and structure, that helps me to recognize that although I'm having this change, there are still some things that I can control. And we can't speak enough about the positive activities. Positivity is quite important. I find that a lot of us, when we are struggling through the transitions or the change, we are more inclined to be focused on the negative. You know, what if this should happen? What if that should happen? What if this should happen? And then there's hopefully somebody to say to you, yes, but this also happens. So I remember saying, I think a long time ago, that people don't get married because nowadays the divorce rates are so high and everybody's getting divorced. And I had my friend say to me, but there are many people who are still married and are having happy marriages. So why focus on that statistic as opposed to the positive one? So we need to have positive activities. We need to practice positive affirmations. We need to look at the same relaxation. We need to ensure we are seeing our glass, if possible, as half full and not half empty. And I like to say to my students, the truth is the glass is always full because there's half water and the other half is filled with air. So let's focus on the positive as opposed to seeing it as half empty. We need that kind of emotional support. So we need to find out. And sometimes it's within the life transition or the change that we may fortunately or unfortunately find out those who are among us and around us who will really be the persons to offer that kind of emotional support and stability for us. It's not a matter of dependence. It's really a matter of having someone to help you navigate, because they're not giving you the answers. What they're doing is helping you in their support to find the answers and what will work for you. And sometimes emotional support doesn't need anything except presence. We don't have to speak. We just need to be present. And even if we're not physically there, we just need to be present. We may need to do a couple of things that lead us into the practical assistance. You know, do you need me to get some groceries? Do you need me to just come and keep some company? Do you need to make some dinner? Do you need me to take you somewhere? The connections are important for the support, and the practicability is also quite important because it helps persons as they navigate these life transitions. Open communication. Not all of us are great with saying what we're feeling or what's happening to us, but we really have to consider being open and honest, because we will be able to share and somebody will not have to guess about what's happening to us when we're being open. And sometimes being open and honest is to ourselves. So even if we're going to journal for argument's sake during this transition or this change, be honest in what you journal. You may come back to it and it's a safe space, but it's important to be open and honest. Remember earlier I said, do not try to sweep the emotions under the carpet. This is a part of that. Be honest about what's happening to you and how you're navigating it. If what you're feeling is anger, if what you're feeling is fear, is what you're feeling is the anxiety, then be open and honest about that to yourself and to those who are around you to support you. Mindfulness is one of the practices. Not everybody engages in it, but it helps us to be present in the moment. I was reminded that the past is gone and the future is not yet here, and many of us miss the present of the presents because we're so caught up in the behind or the what is to come. So when we practice mindfulness, we're about in the moment, and it helps to reduce our stress and our anxiety. And one of the things I like to say, as opposed to the mindfulness practice of just sitting and being still, an alternative to that I like to say, or something else in addition to that, is practicing gratitude. In every day, even when it feels at the worst, there's always at least one thing that we can be grateful for. And when we focus on that, we will recognize that there are still other things happening. That's not just about the life transition or the change. Rest is important, and so is sleep. So sometimes we use them interchangeably, but they're two different things. So we need a lovely sleep cycle, but we need rest. We need to pause. I have a girlfriend who does mental health as well, and she calls it the power of the pause. When do we stop? When do we make our to-do list and it says do nothing? When do we recognize that it's important to actually have some time just for ourselves to really rejuvenate? And I always say to persons, we charge our cell phones overnight, or if it's getting low, because we now use them for everything. You walk with your charger and you're able to plug that in. When do we pause and rest and plug ourselves in to ensure we can manage these life transitions? We are what we eat. So healthy nutrition is also important. I'm not a fan of any kind of fad diet, but I say to persons, we fail to recognize that sometimes what we are putting into our bodies is also important for us to manage our challenges and our life transitions. So when I say to persons, generally, in the Caribbean, I'm going to say we overeat. When we look at the size that they tell us in our Caribbean plate that we should eat, I'm sure a lot of us don't eat like that. But it's not only about the quantity, it's about the quality. So we want to look at those lifestyle changes I suggested in scenario 1, managing our salt and or sugar intake from early, having things that help us so that when we get to certain points, it's better for us in terms of sleep, better for us in terms of our heart health or eye health, all of that, because it's all tied into one. Having those dark green leafy vegetables, for instance, to help our iron, having something else that helps our eyes. We talk about carrots for our eyes. It's very important for our nutrition as well overall to be healthy. Because once we are doing well, then we are able to recognize how we're going to navigate the transition because our mental health is doing better. Now, I tell people all the time, I'm not a fan of the word exercise per se. I like to say physical activity because of a lot of people, exercise sounds like going to the gym for argument's sake, and it's not what it's about. Regular physical activity, at least 30 minutes, at least 3 times per week, engaging in things that we like to do, swimming, running, walking, cycling, just moving. If it includes going to the gym, then great. But the physical activity, physiologically, it releases endorphins. Endorphins are known as the feel-good hormones, help our mental health, and then, of course, it benefits us physically. And then we tie that with doing our hobbies that we like. How many people here, if you want to put it in the chat or you just keep it to yourself, what's the hobby that you have or an activity that's really for you, that you love, and it's about your relaxation and your mental health? It's great for us to go back to that sometimes. I love to read. I have my Kindle on my phone. Sometimes I have a million things happening while I'm working into my transitions, like how our academic year starts next week and I need to be busily preparing for the courses I'm going to teach. And sometimes when it overwhelms me, I pause in a moment. You know what I'm doing? I'm on my Kindle reading because once I've read a couple of chapters of what I have on there, I automatically feel better and I'm able to refocus. So what we're saying is even the small things matter when we're managing our life transition. Sometimes what we will call it is, for the hobby, it could be what we call a distraction. I can't focus on the pain. I can't focus on the diagnosis. I can't focus on the imbalance in all the things that are changing. I don't want to focus on the fact that I now need to make a different plan for my life or that I'm in a different country and I'm by myself. Use your hobby sometimes as your distraction. So this one is another one of my favorites, setting realistic goals and expectations. And in this one, I'm sharing the other serenity prayer. We are sometimes the ones who are our harshest critics, and we do not give ourselves grace. So Eleanor Brown made this other serenity prayer, and it says, God grant me the serenity to stop beating myself up for not doing things perfectly, the courage to forgive myself because I'm working on doing better, and the wisdom to know that you already love me just the way I am. So in managing our life transitions, I think Sam said it, we have to have management of our expectations, set realistic and achievable goals. And when we make any goal or outcome that we want to achieve in this transition, sometimes when you look at it as a goal, it looks insurmountable. Perhaps what you want to do is break it down into small tasks and do these tasks one at a time. Once you're able to tick the tasks, sometimes you don't even realize when you've gotten to the goal. It helps us to control how we are managing our progress, and it reduces that overwhelming feeling when we're able to do it in small tasks. Self-compassion is important. Give yourself grace. It's not always going to go as you hope while you're transitioning, but it's important that you acknowledge your effort and that you are trying, that you keep trying, and that definitely makes your mental health better. Now, as a mental health trained nurse, it would be remiss of me not to say we shy away from getting professional help. And I always say a lot of us are resilient in our skills. And by that, I mean labor and physical skills, especially our gentlemen. You'll be able to maybe look at the pipe if you have a leak or check something if the electricity doesn't seem to be working or tinker with your car, although you're not a mechanic. But when you need real help, when you're not able to do something, you have no issues with calling that professional because that's their expertise. So when your mental health in your transition period and your life change isn't going as you hope or expected or planned, when you are making some headway in trying the different coping mechanisms that you think could work for you, and it doesn't seem to be as effective as you hoped it would be, please consider getting professional help as essential support, because every single life transition can be hard, and there are many that are harder to manage than others. The person who is trained in therapy and counseling, it is their expertise to help you figure out what tools, what strategies, and what coping mechanisms can help you to be better able to navigate this transition, to help you with your mental health and well-being, and to make sure you know what to do, even if you feel like you're doing well and you're not doing as well. Because a lot of times in this life transition, while we're working on being mentally healthy, it's kind of like a up and a down and a up and a down until we're able to get there. So please consider professional help. That's their expertise. So what can managing change look like for us as we try to make sure we stay mentally healthy? Can it be change, or can it be that it's something that's a chance? Because sometimes change is about taking that chance. Sometimes change is about adjusting to that loss. Sometimes change is about getting to acceptance because we're unable to do anything about that change. But when we are managing change for our mental health, it can look like advocacy. If mental health support is what is needed in your family, in your community, in your workspace, in your Christian or faith-based organization, and you don't see it, then consider that you could become an advocate for change to make sure that we move forward having that in place. Mental health education and promotion is what I'm all about. And that's what I like to say to persons: each one teach one. Sometimes we get the knowledge and we keep it. Can we share anything that we have learned? Can we share our life experiences if we're so inclined? Because sometimes once you're sharing, you learn something from somebody else and they learn something from you. And even if it doesn't work exactly the same, the context of it can be changed to benefit you. Do your own search. I'm not saying to take everything that you find on the internet or somewhere as gospel, but if you do your own searching and you have persons you can reach out to, then do that so that you're able to know what knowledge you have and how can you share it. And then if it's possible, within your spaces, invite those who are mental health experts to come and share on a variety of topics, anything that may be most pressing, because it takes each one of us to be able to move on and to help people to navigate in all of these life transitions. I posted about this last week because last week was the week I did my posts for August, and I found it and I'm grateful that she shared. She says, I asked my job for a mental health day to work from home due to the anniversary of my mom's death. I had 16 cases assigned when I clocked in, and 20 minutes later, they were gone. My managers had took over my cases to make today easier for me. The response was, we got you. And for a lot of us, we find that mental health support, because of the stigma that's still attached to mental health, is not something we have within our institutions and facilities. And so it would be great if we had employers who would acknowledge support and act when mental health support is needed. I'm a staunch advocate for having mental health leave, and I don't want it to be sick leave. If I need a day, just as we're seeing in the picture here, for the anniversary of our mom's death, you're not sick. If you're not tending to an emergency or something you had planned, you don't necessarily need a departmental day. What you need is a mental health leave day, and you should be able to have that, but we are not there yet in a lot of places. Mental health days are personal and they're for you. It's a similar process, but really what it is that you've planned and you've said to yourself, what can I do for myself to keep my mental health stable so that for any life transition or change I have, I can navigate that as best as I can. So at least every 3 months, I usually say to persons, make a plan. What is it that you like to do that's very relaxing and de-stressing? And sometimes we allow busyness to take us over. And the next thing you know, it was 6 months or a year, you haven't done a single thing. But I encourage us, consider a mental health day at least once every 3 months. You should be doing something every single day for your mental health. Small things, but make a medium-term and a long-term plan because it's very important. So mental health, when we're managing it, can look like that. Being advocates, getting this change, being able to take that mental health leave or that mental health day when you need it most. It can look like the glass. Did I say that we need to figure out if it's half full or half empty? A lot of people their perspective. So we'll always have some people who probably think it's half empty, some will think it's half full. But one of the things that managing our mental health through any transition that will help us is our perspective. It matters. Are we focusing on being positive? Because when we're positive, we will say the glass is half full. If we're being negative, we're going to say it's half empty. It doesn't mean either of them are wrong, but we're also very aware that once we focus on positives, it benefits our mental health a whole lot more. What does it also look like? Making yourself your priority. So if you treat yourself like this cup, you realize that you will need to put effort into getting your cup full or to minimize it from maybe going below half, because in truth, when you get to half is when you really need to start doing something about it, not when it gets to a quarter. It's very low if it gets to a quarter. When do you prioritize yourself to ensure that your mental health is being worked on consistently? When you are your best you, it means you're your best you in any role or responsibility you have. And sometimes when you manage your own mental health and make yourself a priority, it means that you may be able to only manage in a moment. I don't want us to miss that point, because sometimes we're trying to look at the big picture. Just the way you would break down your goals into small tasks. Sometimes when you're not managing in your life transition or your change, what you really need to do is manage the moment. In this moment, you're most overwhelmed and you feel like crying, then cry. In this moment, you're most overwhelmed and you feel like you cannot get through that moment. And what you need to do is do the deep breathing to help you to relax and to calm down, then do that. So when you've survived sometimes as your priority, even if it's only in the moment, each moment leads to another moment. Sometimes we like to say, take it day by day. I've added to that, take it moment by moment, but you have to prioritize yourself. It's not selfish. That's how you're going to be able to manage everything else around you. So I'd like to conclude this evening by saying to you, life transitions are natural. They will always affect our mental health in one way or another, and we have to be cognizant of that. In building our resilience, we need to be able to understand, we need to be knowledgeable, we need to be flexible. And once we are building our resilience, it helps us to face and adapt to all and any life transition or changes effectively. It's not always going to look pretty, it's not always going to be great, but it's quite important that we keep going. The strategies that we utilize are individualized. What will work for me? How do I recognize what works? What prevents me from trying a couple of things? And if they don't work, then we go back to plans D, E, and F. Once we are consistently doing that and we are positively adapting during any life transition or change, we will get there. And I'm going to say this in my conclusion. Transitioning or changes, it's never something that we can put a time frame on. Sometimes it will be different for each person, and it's not a process that needs to be rushed. It has to be something that we go through. So as we are navigating all our life changes, all our transitions, and any challenges we have, it's important to make sure that we keep working on our mental health in the background and extra hard during that life transition or change. But I want to just remind us, I'm putting a little note here to self, and it says, I've got this. Even when you don't know if you have it. I had somebody who taught us, and they said, there's a TED Talk that says, you fake it until you make it. Tell yourself, I've got this. Put the effort and the work in to get through those transitions and changes. Have your support around you. So on the days when you don't feel so great, there'll be somebody to hold you up. But remember that you still got this. I started off our session today with Miley Cyrus's song, The Climb. And I'm closing with that to remind us that life is dynamic. So there's always going to be another mountain. You're always going to want to make it disappear and go really well, because we always want life to be great. It's going to be an uphill battle. Sometimes you will not win this battle, but then determining what you've learned from the lesson is important, because that's how you win. And then it's not about how fast you get there, because I just said we can't rush the process. It's not about what's on the other side. It's the fact that we're climbing and consistently moving. So I want to thank you for sharing with me this afternoon. This is how you can find me, and I'm going to leave that here as I open the floor for queries, comments, suggestions, and questions. Thank you.
May I say something?
Go right ahead, Dr. Ramsey.
Yes. That concept about the glass being half full and half empty, we are going to say craft our goals thinking that everything is half empty, you find that we craft a different set of goals altogether. So I just love that concept. And there are a lot of things I loved in this presentation. One of them too is that ability to pause. What I find about myself, and I think everybody needs to understand the way they think, is that it doesn't matter how much I say I'm going to do this. I won't unless I write it down, even the pausing. So I know that that is my strength or weakness. So I have to play with it. And that is how I get things done. And that is how I rest. Everything that I write, not just for the day, but everything, that makes a difference for me. Thanks. This was wonderful.
The power of the pause. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ramsey. Anybody else? I thought I saw a hand and then it disappeared.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Fidelis.
Hello. Good evening. Thanks for the presentation. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to share something in the beginning, but I didn't get the chance.
Go right ahead.
I've gone through a little transition in my life, having to move from one country to another, having to move from singlehood to married, having to move from just single couple to children, counting. I've moved, having to change jobs, having to move from one level to the other, and being this current role that I'm in. So it's been quite transitioning. But one thing that really helped me is knowing the end goal. Even when I was doing my master's, it got to a time that some of my colleagues were even trying to give up and all of that. But and another thing that helped me is my faith, and sometimes when I really don't know what next to do, I go back to the faith. David said, I encourage myself in the Lord, and everything I know will work out together for good. So when you know the end goal, Jesus said, just for the joy that was set before me, I was able to endure. Those are some of the things that most of the time keep me going and never think of giving up, my faith. All right. So, and I always, and then another support, the other thing is my support system. When I don't know what to do, I turn to the support system. You said something that is very hard. When those people around you are adding to your stress, they are not really a support system. So it's better if you discard them. So the kind of company we keep sometimes may either help us or sink us. So we just have to be careful with the kind of company we keep. If you cannot call anybody among the people that can hold your hand and say, I've got you, then it's not, I don't think it's important. You don't have to. And friendship is it's not by force. That is how I say it. So if those support systems are not there, if the people I surround myself with are not those that I can call on to when I am faced with challenges, if they are only there when things are good, then they are not worth moving around with. So we have to be careful the kind of people we put, we keep around for. That is the 2 cents I have to share this. Thank you.
Thank you, Fidelis, and I completely agree. I'm glad you've been able to navigate your transitions. And I usually say to persons, I'm very aware when I present that not everybody will agree with the fact that I am Christian and where I look at things from. So while I will share, I will say faith-based, for instance, but I tell people, for those who have their faith or their spirituality, because there are people who will say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. What it is that keeps you grounded when you get to that place where you need to say, and what next? Go right back to your foundation. And I agree. I say to people, my favorite Psalm is Psalm 121. I'm aware that he's always here and he's help. And even in the moments when you feel like you want to ask him, what is this that's happening in your life transition or change? He sends a person with a phone call, a text message, or a song comes in your head, or a scripture comes in your head, or something that reminds you that he's there. So having your faith does keep you grounded. And I always say that, Fidelis, if your circle of support makes you feel more stressed and adds to it, you need a new circle. So thank you. While anybody else will go ahead and comment, I just wanted to just go to the chat and say, you're very welcome, Lillian. It's about the climb. Mental health is a journey, not a destination. And that resilience and adaptability are really important. Thank you, Elizabeth. Edmarine, I'm hugging you a very big hug. I know that when we have transitions, and I just want to be able to say in this space, I can quite understand. It's been a very rough 2 weeks for me coming right back up to the first anniversary of my sister's death. And honestly, it's a transition you're not ready for. And that's why I said it's going to be a up and down, because you will feel okay. You will feel okay-ish, I like to say, and you're still going to have bad days. And there's no way of knowing when you're getting to that place. It's just a matter of when you manage your transition and you change. To me, it's more of the fact that you manage it better as time passes. And so that is what counts, that you keep trying. So thank you. I'm seeing a lot of comments. Thank you, Tatika. I have a Galaxy S9 that says it was a powerful hour. And I appreciate your support and being here with me on all of these Mental Health Mondays on a fourth Monday. I usually really try to, as best as possible, include the practical aspects of it, because when you walk away from here, what I'd really like is for the fact that you would have had something you could use or apply or reuse or share with somebody else that they're able to utilize in their lives, so that we're all working on being mentally healthy, one person at a time. So I thank you very much. And I'm just double checking if there are any other comments or questions. You may have questions. I know I tried to be as clear as I could be, but it doesn't mean we don't have questions and or aspects that we could discuss in a little bit more detail. So I'm just double checking before we're able to move into closing off our session. I got a microphone open just now and it changed.
Well, that is me.
Good evening. I have a Galaxy S20. Your microphone is open. Go ahead. I'm not sure if you're speaking, but we're not hearing you.
Speak.
All right.
Okay.
Cheryl, may I?
Good night. Go ahead, Georgia.
Well, yes, I just wanted to say, as a fellow member of the board, I'm so proud of your presentation, and I'm happy that I joined, and thank you so much for the practical information you shared.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Georgia, for being here. All right, everyone. Anybody else? I will let you know that we are recording the session, and we could always exclude this aspect of it, but usually it goes to the YouTube channel so that we are able to put this information out for others to also find out. Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much, Olivia. And
Cheryl?
yes, go ahead, Dr. Ramsey.
Yes, I'd just like to close off on behalf of, again, of FIPA. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. You remind us that life is really about transitions and change. Sometimes we forget that. You know, when we feel comfortable in ourselves, we forget that, wait a minute, there's some change that is going to come. And they're certainly a bit less frightening when we prepare for them. I'd also like to thank you as a nurse educator, as a lecturer at the University of the West Indies. The demand for nurse educators all over the world, that's very high. And you have chosen to stay in Jamaica when so many of my other students have left. And what can I say? I keep in touch with them because they're great women and men. Thank you, Cheryl, for staying in Jamaica and for doing what you are doing with mental health in this country.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. So I will hopefully see you again on the 22nd of September, I think is our fourth Monday then for Mental Health Mondays. If you're trying to find me, you will see my phone number on the screen. If you're trying to email me, I'm at amentallyhealthyyou@gmail.com. My brand is a Mentally Healthy You. You can see my logo just behind me. And if you search for a Mentally Healthy You on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, then that's how you're also going to find me. The only other thing I'd want to share with you tonight is that Mental Health Mondays is twofold. There is a newsletter on LinkedIn every first Monday, and then we do the session like today on the fourth Monday. So I thank you once again so much for joining me. I thank you, Dr. Ramsey, and all my other colleagues who are affiliated with our board of directors at FIPA. And I look forward to having all of you share the information, to continuing to work on your own mental health, and for me to be able to see you somewhere on social media when I share the next Mental Health Monday newsletter, or when I'm posting, or just to reach out to me. If you need me in your spaces, I like to joke and say, perhaps if I was in surgery under anesthesia and you asked me about mental health, I'd probably have something to say. So I hope to see you as we continue to make this about all of us being a mentally healthy you. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, all. Thank
Very
you. Thank you,
much.
Cheryl.
Good night.
Good night.